Now let's talk about creating organizational units, and the one thing you need to remember is that organizational units are administrative containers. We're going to use these things to group our users, our computers, and everybody into groups so that we can do administrative tasks on those objects inside the organizational unit. You'll see a lot more about that later. Now, designing your organizational unit structure can be quite interesting, and this is the logical organization of your Active Directory, and most people want to make it match the physical organization of their company. This was one of the huge things about Active Directory in Windows 2000. First of all, geographical, that means we can create organizational units like north, south, east, west, Tennessee, Kentucky, California, Nevada, Utah, Montana, that sort of thing. We can also do them departmentally, sales, marketing, human resources, executive, those sorts of things. And you can basically set them up any way you want to. That's the good news, and that's the bad news. Because the organizational unit design is important. It's going to come into play in a major league way when you get into group policy. And so rather than try to explain it here, I'll just kind of wait till we get to group policy, and it will become quite apparent to you how important organizational unit design is. Now let's go out and just create an organizational unit. Let me step you through that process and show you a couple of gotchas that will happen with organizational units and some new functionalities. So to create an organizational unit, let's click on Start, go to Administrative Tools, go into Active Directory Users and Computers, and we will expand our particular Active Directory domain. And let's just right click on the domain name and choose New. Come down and choose New, and then we can choose Organizational Unit. We could have also chosen create a new organizational unit, and it would have done it in our VTC class. If we come here and right click and do New Organizational Unit, it's in the same place. So what I want to call this, well, let's call this East. Now notice there's a checkbox here. This is new in Server 2008, protect the container from accidental deletion. It is a problem to delete these objects and then realize, man, I shouldn't have done that. So we will turn this on, and then we will click OK. And notice we have a new organizational unit here. We can do almost anything we want to. We can grab our users and we can move them. For example, I can move the object into the East container and say OK. And now if I look in East, there's the administrator. Now that hasn't affected anything, permissions or anything. It has just put the administrator in the East organizational unit. And then later I can apply group policies and so forth to the organizational unit. But I want to show you something. If I right click and go to Properties, you will see Managed by, General, Complex. Not a whole lot of stuff. There's some things that you can set up out there. Well, I want to show you something else. If I go to View and turn on Advanced Features, that's just a toggle switch. And then when I go to East and go into Properties, notice we get a little bit more stuff out here. We can see some other things, and notice we can see Protect from Accidental Deletion, which means as long as that's turned on and I try to delete this, it's going to say, are you sure? And I can say yes, and it says, wait a minute, you can't do this. This object is protected from accidental deletion, which means I've got to go in and turn that protection off. And now I can delete this. And notice it's going to now tell me, wait a minute, you got other objects. Do you want to delete it and all the objects? And of course, I'm about to make a horrible mistake here, so I'm going to stop. But notice with that new protected feature, it prevents me from shooting myself in the foot, more or less, by deleting an organizational unit and then having to bring it back or getting into a big, long ordeal by deleting organizational units. So that's how to create an organizational unit. Now we can freely create these things, and that is one of the problems with them. Let's set up a West now. Notice how easy that is. Very easy to set these up. We want to think through this process, but that won't make any sense till we get to group policy. So that's creating an organizational unit. Just play with that a little bit, familiarize yourself with those tabs and properties and so forth, and you should be good to go for the exam.